In the first video in this series, we learned about grass species in general and where different grasses may work across North America, and about warm season grasses and cool season grasses. And we talked about specific grasses for the very far northern US and for Canada. In this video today, we're going to talk about the northern US, the transition zone, the southern US, and Mexico. For more information on managing lawns, please like and subscribe. Starting in the cool winter zone, which covers much of the Pacific Northwest, some of the Northeast, and some of the lower Midwestern states, we can still use all the grasses we discussed in the first video in this series for the far north, but we also pick up tall fescue. Tall fescue doesn't have as good of cold tolerance as Kentucky bluegrass or fine fescue, but we're starting to see more and more of it in northern locations such as the Northeast and far north Midwestern states, as it is an excellent lawn grass, has excellent drought tolerance, and forms an attractive and dense lawn. In the extreme northern locations, new tall fescues will likely survive most winters. The key thing to think about with tall fescues is that you've got to make sure you aren't buying a pasture type tall fescue, and pay attention not to purchase Kentucky 31. These tall fescues have wide leaf blades, grow quickly, lack density, and are a lighter green color than turf type tall fescues. If mixed with other cool season grasses, these pasture type tall fescues are so large they look like weeds in an otherwise nice looking lawn. In the cool winter zone, there is less fear of winter injury to perennial ryegrass, so you will see more of it used, but I still generally like to only see it used in mixes with other species, and still only at a maximum of 20 to 30%. The transition zone is where I've spent the majority of my professional life, and it's a tough area to grow grass. The summers are too hot for a lot of cool season grasses, and the winters can be too cold for most warm season grasses. The transition zone is the one area where we can grow all grasses equally poorly. So what should we grow in the transition zone if nothing is really adapted? Well, you'll find a little bit of Kentucky bluegrass in the northern part of the region, a little perennial ryegrass, and a lot of turf type tall fescue. Summers become too hot for Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass in the transition zone, and in high humidity areas, the disease pressure on these grasses, especially the ryegrass, becomes too much for them. The tall fescues have good heat and drought tolerance and will do better than all the other cool season grasses in this region. Fine fescues are mostly a niche grass in the transition zone for shaded areas only. Full sun exposure is generally going to be too warm for fine fescues. You'll also see some warm season grasses in the transition zone as well. Bermuda grass is frequently used on sports fields and golf course fairways and tees, and as you get into the lower portion of the transition zone, you'll see it fairly commonly on lawns. In the upper portion of the transition zone, you'll also see some Bermuda grass on lawns, but usually only as a weed. Some Bermudas have decent cold tolerance, while others do not have great cold tolerance, so if you're looking to use Bermuda grass in the transition zone, it's important to do your homework as to which one to use. Zoysiagrass can be used in the transition zone and generally has better cold tolerance than Bermuda grass. Buffalograss, which is the only native species commonly used as a turf grass, can also be found across the transition zone in dry locations only. Buffalograss has excellent heat, cold, and drought tolerance, and so you'll find it all the way from Texas all the way up into the Dakotas and Montana. You might also see a tiny bit of centipedegrass in the very lower parts of the transition zone, but seeing it would be few and far between. In the warm winter zone, you'll still see a little bit of tall fescue in the more northern areas, but Kentucky bluegrass and fine fescues will mostly disappear. Perennial ryegrass is used in the southern US, but only for overseeding warm season grasses for winter color. For most of the warm southern region, as well as the subtropical region, you will see warm season grasses. Bermuda grass is common on lawns, athletic fields, and golf courses. It has excellent traffic tolerance and recovery from damage. Zoysiagrass can be found on lawns and golf courses. Zoysia has great traffic tolerance, but is a really slow grower, so doesn't recover as quickly as Bermuda grass. Zoysia also won't invade your flower beds as bad. Centipedegrass will be found on a number of low input lawns across the warm summer and subtropical zones. It will thrive under low fertility and makes an attractive lawn. You'll occasionally see carpetgrass in really low input and wet areas, but it is not very dense and quickly produces seed heads after mowing. St. Augustinegrass is common on lawns across both of these zones and forms a nice dense lawn. It has large leaf blades, so it takes a little to get used to, but it looks great in a uniform lawn. Bahiagrass is another warm season grass that will be found growing on lawns in the warm summer and subtropical zones. It is frequently used in low maintenance areas as it has excellent drought and insect tolerance and doesn't require much fertilizer. It will, however, frequently put up seed heads and isn't the most dense lawn. People on the southern portions of the west coast of the U.S. and into Mexico will also see some kikuyugrass. It will survive in shaded areas, but it spreads very quickly and is often considered a weed grass. However, if managed properly, it can make a nice looking lawn. This is just a quick run through of which grasses will work in different locations across North America. In a future video, I'll discuss how to choose the right cultivar of a grass to suit your needs.